quinzaine de minutes de questions.
Let's go to questions.
First question. Please go ahead at the mic. Go ahead, Mercedes.
Hi, Prime Minister Carney. Mercedes Stevenson from Global News. You're announcing funding for the Arctic today, which is substantial, but was already planned and announced largely by your government in regards to the over-the-horizon radar system. You're coming back from visiting with your counterparts in France and in the UK, who are dramatically increasing defence spending. Why not take this opportunity to announce significant new money to defend Canada's north in light of the threats that we're facing?
Well, thanks for the question, Mercedes. I think the first thing is, if I may reverse the order, which is what we're focused on is, as you would expect, delivering a more secure country, protecting Canadian people, and doing that in the best way possible. So, well, I'll call it the Arctic Radar Shield has been under development for some time. There has been a process led by the Minister of Defence, and I want to thank the Minister of Defence, and I want to thank the Chief of the Defence Staff with important input, a long process to determine what is the best way to do that, both value for money for taxpayers, but very importantly, as well, how can we implement something as quickly as possible and as effectively as possible? So after very long deliberation and analysis, we get to a point where the Australian system and the partnership we can strike with them responds to all of those priorities. And I was pleased to confirm that in a phone conversation this morning with Prime Minister Albanese of Australia.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Securing Canada is an absolute strategic priority of this government. I'm under no illusions that well, let me put it more positively, we will need to do more. We will do it deliberately. We will do it in a way that gets effective value for money, that delivers true security, that is coordinated and reinforces with our partners. And so, yes, I fully expect that, and I've said this before, but I'll just reiterate it, if one looks towards percentages relative to GDP or absolute dollar figures, I expect that more will have to be placed for defense spending, and it will come sooner, but it will only come under circumstances that meet the types of tests of the announcement today, where they have maximum impact as quickly as possible.
In regards to the Northwest Passage, which multiple American administrations have not recognized Canada's sovereignty over, are you particularly concerned about the Northwest Passage in light of Donald Trump's comments about Canada's Arctic and his desire to defend it unilaterally without our consent?
Well, the Northwest Passage is Canadian sovereign. These are Canadian sovereign waters. These are internal waters to Canada, and we first and foremost need to take steps to assert that sovereignty in several ways. And one of the ways, and I had discussions with the Premier, we had discussions moments ago on exactly issues around how we develop communities and economic opportunities abutting the Northwest Passage. That's part of the way we will do this. How do we do that in a way that potentially has dual use, so would also have military use and impacts? And these are priorities. And when the Premier says he looks forward to welcoming me back, and the Minister of Defence back, and the Minister of Industry back, and the other ministers of the Crown back, he's right. These invitations will be taken up because these are absolute priorities of this government.
Can you talk about the American threats? Answer? Like I said before, we have the Northwest Passage. This Northwest Passage is part of the Canadian territory. This is very clear. This is clear for us. We have to make sure that we assert our sovereignty. We need to invest, and we need to do it strategically. question. Can you tell Canadians if there are any files or any decisions where you would recuse yourself because of your assets that are in a blind trust, such as Paul Martin did some years ago?
Disperse! Nothing to see here, please!
Answer. This is a good question. What I can tell you is the following. There is a period in which we can make decisions for Canada. We have to tighten our budget. We have to review our operations following some guidelines. And this will allow us to increase our productivity. Now, I would like to talk about your personal assets. Answer. Oh, I'm sorry. You're talking about Mr. Martin? Yes. Are you going to recuse yourself because of your interest in that blind trust? I understand your question now. Yes, I will. Like, as usual, you put in place a blind trust, and with the commissioner, there will be some screens, like what happened with Mr. Martin when he was Prime Minister. We've presented a plan for that.
It's a decision for, if I may, so question with respects to screens related to certain assets as assets go into a blind trust. These are decisions, of course, of the Ethics Commissioner. So as you know, as you may recall, my assets have been put into a blind trust well in advance of the requirements, so they've been disposed. But what happens is that there's a discussion with the Ethics Commissioner for certain screens around certain issues, and that's a process that is underway. It's a natural process, and of course, it's part of the way our system works, and I very much respect the system. And those screens become public as they're developed.
What the hell are you talking about? Pourquoi ne pas le faire proactivement, peut-être?
So why not being proactive? Answer. I think you have to ask this question to the Ethics Commissioner. I'll give you an example. Let's say that there's a decision that will have a major impact on Brookfield. Then, of course, I will recuse myself. I'm working very fast.
I'm working as fast as I can. Recall that, and I didn't set these rules. They were set by a government of which Mr. Poilievre was a member. That the time horizon is measured in months. I worked in advance, actually, of becoming Prime Minister in terms of the disposals, and in a matter of days and weeks in terms of having these screens.
Right.
Next question.
Hi, Rob Gillies from Associated Press. You will have a call with President Trump in the coming days. What are your expectations for the president in that call?
I think, let me say a few things. The first is that the President of the United States, the Prime Minister of Canada, but certainly the President of the United States has many responsibilities, and there are many issues. I can think of many geostrategic issues that the President is helping to lead on, and you can think of events most recently in with respect to the Houthis and all the way through to trade and other aspects. So there's a wide range of issues to be discussed when we do connect. With respect to trade, I look forward to, at the appropriate time, having a discussion as two sovereign nations that is comprehensive, not targeted at one issue.
Putin and Trump had a 90-minute call at least today. Are you comfortable with that?
Well, I mean, as I maybe I'll refer back to my previous answer, which is that there are a range of issues, and one of the issues that I discussed both with President Macron yesterday, Prime Minister Starmer last evening, discussed on the weekend with a series of leaders, is how to get Russia to be an active and willing participant in a ceasefire in Ukraine. So anything that the president can do to make that happen, and he's committed to make that happen, anything he can do to make that happen that respects the territorial integrity of Ukraine, that meets a series of other conditions that have rightly been set out by the government of Ukraine, I fully support.
We'll do last question, dernière question.
Prime Minister, hello. Martina Stevis-Gridneff with the New York Times.
Welcome.
Wow, to you too, sir.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you very much. My question is a little broader, pertains to my colleague's question. Your predecessor shared his assessment with the Canadian people and the world that President Trump's goals and motives in Canada were to economically crush the country in order to annex it. I know you've only been in power for a few days, but I'm sure you've had briefings and meetings. And I wonder, ahead of this phone call with President Trump, do you share Prime Minister Trudeau's assessment, or have you made your own personal assessment about what President Trump really wants from Canada?
Well, I think first and foremost, I think what President Trump wants, he wants several things. One is he wants to end the fentanyl crisis in the United States. I respect that. He wants good, high-paying jobs in America. He wants more investment in America. He wants repatriation of many American industries and firms to the United States. So, and I fully respect that.
Look at his decision when he had the opportunity to send a message as the chair of Brookfield Asset Management to keep its headquarters in Canada, to keep it proudly Canadian. And what did he do? As he noted in his letter to shareholders, in the interest of higher profits for himself, for his board, and for their shareholders, he moved it to Donald Trump's hometown in New York City.
I think he will respect that as Prime Minister of Canada, I want to end the fentanyl crisis in Canada. I want to grow good, high-paying jobs in Canada. And of course, I want to protect with my colleagues and reaffirm and reinforce our sovereignty of all of Canada. So that's the starting point for the discussion.
Just listening closely to your answer,
peut-être dernière question et je peux faire un résumé. Oui.
Just listening closely to your answer previously, it sounded like you may be changing, and listening to what you said last night about the limits of retaliatory tariffs, for example. It sounds like maybe you are nuancing your strategy vis-a-vis President Trump by perhaps leaving trade talks to others. We know you have authorized these conversations to happen in Washington, D.C. as early as this week at USTR level. Are you going to be trying to focus more on positive things that you can talk about with President Trump?
I wouldn't necessarily have that characterization.
It's my first day.
What I'm saying is severalfold. The first, and I'll go back to where you started with your previous question, which is we are focused on building this economy. Today's announcement is, of course, about sovereignty, it's about protection, but it's also about building the economy here in Nunavut. We are going to build Canada. Canada is strong, and it's going to get stronger. We can give ourselves more than anything that President Trump or other trade partner can take away. Okay? That's a basic point. And that if there is a misconception of that in the United States. I'm not saying the president has that misconception, but if there's a misconception of that, we are going to disabuse that misconception. We're going to grow this economy because that's good for Canadians, better for our future, and we can do it, and we're going to do it. In terms of discussions, what I'm saying is that there are a series of trade initiatives from the U.S. Such that they've called into question the validity of USMCA, since you're in New York Times, how you would refer to it, USMCA. And that means that we should have a broader conversation about our commercial relationship, which also involves a conversation about our security relationship with the United States. So I'm less interested in reacting to every initiative putting on the table that we want to have that broader conversation. It won't happen overnight. There's no magic one meeting that is going to unlock things. And of course, we have regular conversations with the U.S. on a variety of issues, but the big issues around trade are going to need to be taken more comprehensively, and they will be taken from a Canadian perspective, from a position of strength. We can take time. We're going to get stronger, and these initiatives are going to weaken them. Alors, your first question, afin de faire la traduction, sorry, in order to do the translation, remind me on the first one again? Yeah. I can hear you, though.
Okay,
I can hear you.
The first question was that your predecessor explained that his analysis of President Trump's motives was to economically crush Canada in order to annex it. Do you share that analysis?
I hope that President Trump has more than one objective. This is clear. First of all, he wants to put an end to the fentanyl crisis in the United States, and this applies also to Canada. Then, he wants to create good job, well-paid job. And we have the same objectives for Canada and for Canadians. Our economy is strong. That is clear for me. With the investment we just announced today, our Canadian economy will get stronger. This is our strategy. When President Trump will be ready to have exhaustive and serious discussion, we will be ready. We're actually ready to move forward also. We're good? Thank you so much.